All right, what is going on, my dudes? So we got a little balancing update post on Absorbing Man and Baron Zemo. So the little 3-month window has been open for their rebalance period with all their data and everything being collected. So we're going to jump into it today and see what's going on with Absorbing Man, Baron Zemo, seeing if they're getting changed at all, and talking about if it's going to affect them in the long run. So, Absorbing Man, the guy who absorbs. So, on attack, Absorbing Man has some specific targets, no doubt about it. Path 9 in War, he shreds that, as well as some annoying cosmics like Terrax, Null, and Annihilus. He demolishes those. Also, side note, Howard the Duck, next time you fight one with Absorbing Man, eat a heavy attack. It's hilarious. You're all the way ramped up. It's great. So far, we're happy. And I did that like in Act 8, by the way, so it's like viable everywhere. So far, we're happy seeing players use him effectively in those matchups and are happy where he's landed. Woohoo! On defense, yes, so he's not being touched offensively. People thought he was going to get nerfed on offense. Never understood why. I never, ever understood why people thought Absorbing Man was going to get nerfed. He's really good against those, 3 tough defenders and, some easy defenders like Howard, Angela, whenever there are armor breaks and stuff like that. But he's supposed to be good against armor breaks. You know what I mean? That's like what he's meant to do. And then, in my opinion, in other matchups where like he's not benefiting from the debuffs and from the armor breaks, he's a good champ, but like unless he's your favorite champ in the game, why would you use him who has a stressful playstyle then without, you have to light intercept all the time? Definitely possible. Really good champ and you can make it work. But for me, I'm going to use him against Terrax, Null, Annihilus whenever there are immunities that I need, which is very, very often. But that's what he's meant to do. I never understood why people thought he would get nerfed when that was like his design intention, and he's a stressful to play good champion otherwise. So I don't know. However, on defense, Absorbing Man had the goal of being a difficult defender, looking for specific RPG counters in addition to mastering, punishing his special attacks with your own heavy attack. So far, we're seeing that Absorbing Man has made a strong impact in the current defender meta. In Battlegrounds, we're currently satisfied with his performance and his win rate. Nice. While his defensive kit rate started off high on release in comparison to strong defenders who benefit from tactics, a lot of words here, man. We're seeing a trend down over time as more players become familiar, and that always happens whenever there's a tough defender. At first, they rack up all the kills, people figure them out, and it's like, oh, you can fight them, okay? Kind of like Hulkling, right? It's like, now it's like, oh, I know how to fight that guy now. He doesn't have to go unblockable and just kill me all the time. I know what to do now, right? Same kind of thing. However, we're seeing a trend in the Challenger and hard tiers when Absorbing Man's defensive win rate is higher than we'd like to see. So, I've seen the screenshots, right, of like tier 3, 4, 5 war, where I saw one screenshot where Absorbing Man had like 90 defensive kills in war, which is crazy, right? So that obviously is something that has to be taken into account here. So this indicates there are situations where players who bring a suboptimal counter are stuck fighting him over multiple fights due to a strong regen resetting progress in the fight. While we still want to keep the threat of regen on defense, we're looking into lower the amount of cases where a player can lose their progress between attempts. So we're happy with this performance as attacker. We're looking to change something, blah, 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 stick. So when Absorbing Man consumes his morph charges, he gains a non-stacking regen passive, healing up to 30% of his missing health over 12 seconds. As a defender, this effect also triggers when he refreshes any form. In his current state, since Absorbing Man starts the fight in his Black Uru form, he triggers the regen. Since this ability, firing on fight start, doesn't give the attacker the chance to counter the regen, it results in players losing progress. So they're going to look into add a clause to the ability that prevents him from starting at the start of the fight. Our hope is that will lower the cases where attackers give up 10 billion things to him. So 10 billion deaths. Is this going to help? In my opinion, no. Is it like a good change? Yes. If you're bringing a counter to Absorbing Man, this doesn't matter. So here's the dealio, Celio. There's no way to fix this without gutting the champ. And gutting the champ is a bad idea, right? Taking away his regen, making it counterable nonstop, that takes away his defensive identity. It takes away the idea to bring an RPG counter of heal reversal, which is huge in the science class, right? Sandman, ridiculous heal reverse champ, so good for heal reversing. He's a great Absorbing Man counter. We have a rank 5 in my battle group. I sent him to one on path 9B, section 2, path 9, shredded him to pieces. So that's what you want to do there. What this is changing is this. So this is very off-center. Why is this so off-center? I don't know. But point is, right? At the start of the fight, he gains this regen, and he recovers some of his missing health, and every time he uses a special attack, basically, he gains the regen. When he gets to like 30% health, that's when this becomes a problem, right? So, when players don't bring that optimal counter, yes, he'll, be gaining that regen at the start of the fight, but he's just going to be gaining it every time he switches his forms. But like I said, there's no real way to fix it without gutting the champ. So hopefully over time, people start bringing the proper counters to him. It's just kind of one of those defenders, man. I feel like he's just kind of like a Korg or a thing where you really want a proper counter to him. But yeah, pretty much no changes to Absorbing Man. He's still going to be a beast on defense. I think we're still going to see double-digit kills from him on defense in lower tier war. But yeah, Absorbing Man. People thought he was going to get nerfed on offense. I never understood why. He's not. Moving on, Baron Zemo, my favorite champ in the entire game. Is he still going to be good? Let's talk about it. Zemo's doing a good job of hitting his attributes and meta goals. Hell yeah, Zemo. On attack, he's showing up as a viable attacker with either his bleeds or furies, especially against science champions with many debuffs or defensive abilities. On defense, he's encouraging bleed resistance on attackers that fight him. His indefinite effects are the right level of terrifying, and his route is somewhere you definitely don't want to be caught. While we're happy with the power level of Zemo in day-to-day content, he has two abilities that are intended to be defensive focused that are heavily shaping his offensive identity too. Fury gained from Purify or Immunity, and the armor up buffs that function as a cooldown to his cleanse passes. So we want to preserve the strength of his Fury and cleanses while making sure Zemo feels interactive to play as and against. Though we want to adjust these abilities, we want these changes to feel neutral or even beneficial. We'll talk about that in most fights. For the handful of existing matchups that are affected by the change direction below, like Black Widow Clairvoyant, we still want him to feel like a strong attacking option. So, if you don't know what that is, it's kind of stupid, and I'll show it to you right here. So, Black Widow puts debuffs on her heavy attack, right? You get rooted, then you get nullified, and then you get rooted again, and then you get nullified, and then you get rooted again, and then you get nullified, and then you get rooted again, and then you get right? You see where that's going, right? So that is what that matchup is, and it's kind of stupid, but we'll talk about that more later on. Furies on Purify or Immunity. Zemo gains a potent Fury buff each time his opponent purifies a debuff or is immune to an effect. These can stack and apply to all debuffs or effects, including those from any quest nodes. This combo can leave open some interactions that are too punishing to play against when he's a quest defender, or incentivize play that breaks the core fight flow as an attacker. We'll be looking to safeguard against some of those potential combinations while still keeping this ability as a major damage source for him, and major it is. The earlier direction being to simply add a cap of 15. 15 is a very, very, very large cap for that ability. Since most of his matchups involve him using a Fury as soon as he gains it, correct? Those abilities still feel quite strong, correct? Which is our goal. We believe this will affect niche but extreme matchups in both offense and defense. So, I feel like one thing that isn't said here is that it's trying to affect things that don't exist yet, which totally makes sense. So let's say there's a defender that comes out, kind of like Kingpin, but like times 10. Let's say he just has like 40 debuffs purified like every 2 seconds, right? Let's say he holds a heavy attack and consumes his power and purifies debuffs off of him in order, or like he exchanges his power to purify debuffs and gains attack, right? That would just give Zemo 40 Furies, right? Which would be great for Zemo, which would be impossible to fight against him if you're using that character, but that sort of ability is going to take that design space and make it unable to be used, whether as a boss or as a character. Adding a cap of 15 is really not going to touch him in 99% of places while kind of future-proofing that ability. The Furies are very, very strong. For example, against Kingpin here, right? We have 9 Furies. There's like a 90k medium attack 2 seconds into the fight. That's not changing. And the cap is 15. So that was 9. The one thing this is going to affect is at the end, literally the one thing, is the end of the Nick Fury fight when he purifies like 25 bleeds. Instead of having 25 Furies, you're only going to have 15 Furies now. So unfortunately, that part right there, that kind of sucks. Really not the end of the world. Now at this point, you're going to have to dance around him a little bit and then throw the special 3 before, you know, hitting him, or you could just like take him down to like 20% health right away. I'm still going to use him for Nick Fury, and he's going to be fine there. But yeah, overall, a cap of 15. They're 200% Furies. You could still have up to 3,000% attack. Literally doesn't affect him in 99% of places. So, the cleanse passives and armor up buff. When Zemo uses his cleanse, he roots his opponent and gains an armor up buff. As soon as that buff is no longer present, either due to expiring or being removed, he gains a cleanse passives back and starts the loop again. So that's kind of like what I showed you with Black. God, I keep doing this with Black Widow here, right? Since it can be nullified, it just does this, and it creates that constant loop of kind of BS at the end of the day, right? Because regaining cleanse passage is tied to an armor up buff, fights with effects like armor break and nullify have drastically different pacing compared to fights in which Zemo has to wait the full 20 seconds of his armor up buff. We want to make the cycle on his cleanse feel more consistent. That's good. Preserve his cleanse uptime to counter debuffs. That's great. And prevent him from too quickly being able to put his opponent back into root. To accomplish this, we're looking into changing the buff to a passive and reducing its duration. That's fantastic. So his cleanse was more consistently back after about 15 seconds. With the idea of it being changed to a passive, we're also exploring what type of effect will best suit him as a skill attacker. Personally, I would be so freaking happy if this is like a resistance up passive, so that way when he's doing like hazard shift against like, you know, the incinerate or the shock, he's not really taking damage from that, and he's possibly even healing from it. So it'll make him better against hazard shift nodes. This, I use him for hazard shift and biohazard and stuff like that in Alliance War almost every single war. This is actually going to make him better for that against champions who aren't Black Widow clairvoyant. Like, I'm really not too upset about losing a stupid matchup that I don't use to make him better against science champions and debuff matchups. Actually pretty happy with that one overall. So while at the end of the day, the Fury cap is literally technically a nerf to his Fury stack, at the end of the day, it's just getting capped. This one feels more like a rebalance. It will affect armor break matchups. You root them for 5 seconds, right? So when you turn them into a root, there's usually 15 seconds left with the armor up buff. Now there's going to be about 10 seconds left. So you can't like armor break yourself right away. But at the end of the day, in more scenarios than not, against like hazard shifts and stuff, usually you have to like hit their block for the 15 seconds. Now it's just going to be 10 seconds. And maybe the passive will increase his energy resistance so we can take those incinerates, take those shocks on the chin without really taking too much damage, right? So that'd be nice. But yeah, overall, both champions are mostly staying the same. You can't cheese Black Widow clairvoyant anymore with Zemo. And he's getting a Fury cap, so he can only get up to plus 3,000% damage on one hit, which is still a lot. So yeah, overall, both champs are going to feel the same in 95% of scenarios. Even defensively, Absorbing Man is still really gonna feel the same. So yeah, that's a little balance update to Zemo and Absorbing Man. Both champions are still totally rank 5 worthy. Sig 200, Awakening Gems, 6 stones, all that stuff. Ascension when it's a thing. If they're 7 stars, take them to rank 2, take them to rank 3. Zemo comes to the Future Poll in 2 weeks. Hope you get him. I hope you got Absorbing Man from this one, and if you haven't, you got 2 more weeks to get him. Both champions are still worthy of ranking. And that's it for this one. I'll be seeing you around.